Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and reconvene the public session. And we'll now have a report of actions taken in closed session. City Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. There was no reportable action. Council was updated on all 4 items.
Thank you. We'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Catherine Alleman and the Invocation by RSO Chaplain Anderson. Good evening.
Most holy and loving Father, thank you on behalf of all those gathered here today. Thank you for the many blessings. We thank you for life itself and for the measure of health that you've given each and every one of us. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of being able to serve. Thank you, Lord, for the freedom we enjoy, and thank you for loving each and every one of us. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens are to obey governing authorities. Therefore, Lord, I pray today for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and for the city council. I ask that you would grant each of them wisdom to govern, give them the appropriate knowledge in their tasks, peace in their hearts, allow them the ability to work together in harmony, as well as to recognize justice and the desire to meet the needs of all the people. Lord, we love you and we thank you in all we do. In thy name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. Okay, so we're going to have a short presentation by Riverside County Sheriff's Department. This is on recruitment by our new lieutenant, Jessica Hall. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor, is he on the speakerphone?
He's in a box at the
In
end
box?
of the
Mayor in the box. Mayor
mayor
Pro
in the
Tem?
box tonight.
City council members.
I can see it, Robin. I have it on my screen.
So I'm excited to present you guys with the latest recruiting video from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. I was in recruiting at the time, so I had the privilege of being part of the team that was tasked with the logistical part of this video, and then a professional film crew from out of state came in. I made 3 visits to Riverside County. We did multiple days of filming on each of those visits, and one of the ideas behind this was to include some of the unique areas of Riverside County, one of those being Norco. And so they were out here specifically for Horse Week. And we have Deputy Wittenberg is featured in the film, along with, you'll see the Ingalls Event Center and the parade during Horse Week. So, and the film crew was nice enough to sneak a candid shot of me in during the Temecula Balloon and Wine Festival. So try to catch that if you can. I had a great time helping make this and watching just the immense amount of work that went in from the film crew. From just, we gave them some ideas and they put this whole product together. It was quite impressive to watch. So I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you.
We chose service above self because as an agency, we believed in our community and we believed that they came first.
It's a simple motto, but it encompasses the entire job that we do.
A lot of people tend to think of our job as, okay, we're just out there to arrest and take the bad guys to jail.
But really, there's a completely different world of law enforcement out there that people don't realize.
I have to put my thoughts and my feelings, everything aside to help keep the public and our deputies safe.
Our dispatchers are the first line of contact.
They are like the heartbeat. They take the calls as they come in and they have to give that information to us so that we can respond as soon as possible to assist.
And then after we do our work in patrol, we have to do something with those people that are arrested and they go into our jails.
Corrections is extremely rewarding. People that want to commit crimes are brought to our facilities, and it's our job to ensure that they stay there so that the public can sleep at night safely.
The ultimate goal of corrections is to make sure that the inmates that we have don't come back.
We have a wide variety of vocational training programs to help them rejoin the community and be productive.
It's very fulfilling to me to be able to have that piece in law enforcement that a lot of people don't know about.
One different function of law enforcement can't happen without all of the others.
There are so many different areas that you can work.
We have mountains, we have deserts, we have rural areas, we have cities.
Biggest resource that we have is the people that we have working for us, that they're all trained, have the right equipment, and are willing to go out there and do the job.
If you want to do law enforcement, you have to be willing to sacrifice.
The commitment to this career is immeasurable.
We have to go to people's lowest points in their lives.
We've seen our own department members lay down their lives for each other, for the community, and that's what we stand for. That's what we believe in, and that's what we do.
The overwhelming support that we have from our community is like no other.
When I'm out in my uniform, I get a lot of people saying, "Thank you for doing what you do."
Our goal is to support the community. Our goal is to protect the community. And so when I think about service above self, that's what we're doing.
You go all in on this job.
Are you ready to make that commitment? Are you prepared to make those sacrifices?
Because if we don't, who will?
Well done. Lieutenant, appreciate your leadership, you and Captain Kohler. Just so very proud of all of you. Does council have any comments? Mayor Bash? Robin? Catherine? Erwin?
Yeah, thanks for that video. I think that the public needs to see that. Have you shown it to any of the residents around or anything? You might get some more recruits.
We actually did feature it on the Norco Sheriff's Station Facebook, and I believe Kelly also shared it on the Norco page, and it's available for the public to see anytime on our sheriff's website as well.
Well, that's good advertisement there. You guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you once again. Okay, let's move into city council reports on regional boards. And if we can start with Councilmember Grunmeyer.
Nothing to report at this time.
Thank you. Catherine?
Nothing to report at this time.
Berwin?
Okay, on Saturday, February the 3rd, I attended the 10-year anniversary ribbon cutting at Sports and Nut Pizza with Mayor Bash and Mayor Pro Tem Newton. And I was actually there 10 years ago when they did the grand opening. It's a lot of people there that day too. RTA, they had a coach operators hiring clinic last Saturday, and they said they wound up with about 50 applications, and 25 of them were already going through background checks and everything. So that's a good deal. Ridership is up. They had voted the last time to purchase several new dial-a-ride buses. They're going to go different than the little buses you see. They're going to use vans, and they're called EL, extra long, and they'll all have room for wheelchair passengers. And today we voted to purchase 50 new bus stops. That includes the benches, the covers, and the trash containers. So we're gonna buy, we voted to buy 50 of them. We're gonna take 25 of them at first and then get more later. And with RCTC, I attended a 2-day workshop in Palm Springs. That's January the 25th and 26th. And the two main subjects were the addition of rail service from LA to Coachella Valley. They've been trying to get that going for several years, and we voted to continue the study and everything. Because I was surprised at how many people would drive in from Coachella Valley to San Bernardino and catch a train right on into LA. It's quite a few. And we also voted for the widening of Highway 74 from Hemet to Interstate 15. And I think this project's been on paper for 20 years and looked like it finally might get off of the ground. And then we have the presentation of the Riverside County Traffic Improvement Plan will be at the February 21st City Council meeting here. And that's a good thing to watch. It shows what the county's trying to do to improve traffic in all the areas, and they're going to all the cities to try to explain to people what's happening. And that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Berwin. January 30th, myself, staff, Mayor Bash, we attended the Kathy Azevedo Spirit of Norco subcommittee meeting, and we're working on the first inductees in the inaugural class. And then on February 1st, our monthly Chino Basin Desalter Authority Board of Directors meeting. And that's all that I have on that. Kevin, Mayor Bash.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. I went to a lot of things. I think the two things that really stand out was I really enjoyed the FFA barn dance. I was really shocked at how wonderful it was. And then I was real proud of the Support Sisters who at the Corona Chamber of Commerce installation dinner, they were named Nonprofit of the Year. That's almost an entirely Norco group started by Kathy Azevedo. So I think those are the highlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we'll go into public comments, and I'll call upon the city clerk for any public comments.
I have one speaker card, Bonnie Slager.
Good evening, Bonnie.
Gee, there's usually a bunch of people. I'm the only one tonight. Good evening, everybody. I hope you survived the rain okay. Two things that I wanted to tell you about. I understand there's a rumor going around that there's a city council election coming up this year. And as we have in the past, Norco Horsemen's and Rural are going together to have a candidates night. So I'm asking you all to put on your calendar now, September 19th at Nellie Weaver Hall for a candidates night. Please don't schedule any city events that night so that we can have a good turnout, hopefully. And my second thing is next week on February 15th is our monthly Norco Horsemen's Association meeting, and Mayor Bash is going to be our speaker, so I hope everybody will attend. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
I have no further speakers.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, moving into the consent calendar. Are there any council members that wish to pull any items? Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second.
Please vote. And motion passes unanimous.
Thank you, Dana. Okay, moving into legislative matters. I'll ask if council has any questions or concerns at this time. Hearing none. Dana, are there any public comments?
Our only public comment would be for 5B, Mayor.
Okay. Then we'll address 5A first. This is a zone code amendment 2023-06, second reading, with a recommendation to adopt ordinance 1108, approving zone code amendment 2023-06. And I'll ask for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Please vote.
Mine was there and then it went away.
It's there.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay. Thank you. Five B, Zone Code Amendment 2023-07. And we have a card on 5B.
One speaker card, Sandra Caprion, attorney for Ray Mena.
Good evening.
Well, good evening. And if you don't mind, could I just
Sure.
ask a question of our city attorney?
Sure.
On a second reading, typically there's no public comment. Could you, or no further evidence, could you give an explanation?
That's
Please.
correct. So on an ordinance, we have a first read as a public hearing. We close the public hearing, so that means we don't take additional evidence. But under the Brown Act, any matter that's on the agenda is an opportunity for the public to comment. So to comply with the Brown Act, we do allow public comments on second reads, although to comply with due process, you shouldn't consider new evidence. If the attorney wants to comment on the old evidence, provide opinions, anything else of that nature, we tend to be relatively liberal about allowing people Brown Act compliance, time to speak, time to give public comments. So just a word of caution to the council that the public hearing has closed, although the city is very liberal in public to speak.
Thank you, Colin. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Good evening. My name is Attorney Sandra J. Cyprian, and I am here on behalf of Ray Mena. I believe earlier this week or at the end of last week, the Attorney Kimberly Hall did submit some public comment as well, so I won't go into all of that. I'll keep this very brief. But I just wanted to highlight some of the concerns. If this ordinance is adopted as it is, it leaves unanswered questions and concerns for current residents that are already lawfully maintaining animals listed, such as camels, llamas, alpaca, emus, and ostriches, which are not currently counted. And regarding the counting, there's a concern that that it may be arbitrary with respect to camels, for example. So one unit would be an 8-month-old camel would be considered one unit. However, camels can nurse up to 18 months and are not full grown until 11 years old. I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
There's also a major concern for the undue harm that this would cause to residents that are currently lawfully maintaining the above-mentioned animals without restriction. There's no mention of how the city would differentiate between those residents that began maintaining these animals before the ordinance and those that would begin maintaining them after the ordinance. And if the council could please consider all of the written comments. Again, I want to respect the time and the fact that you are allowing me to speak after the position, after the first reading. But we do ask the council that they consider the written comments submitted by Attorney Hall and allow current residents who have had these animals without restriction to continue to enjoy the lifestyle that attracted them to Norco in the first place. We look forward to working with the city to find a resolution that addresses these concerns. And I do thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to add, we did receive a letter from the resident's attorney, as was mentioned by the speaker, and expressing some concerns about potential impacts on folks that already have animals. And I think in this particular property, they're concerned about camels they're keeping here. And just want to be clear, our intention here is to clean up the ordinance to make it clear that how many of these animals we permit per so many square feet like we do with other animals. So we're certainly not interested in causing any concern to the resident. I'm not aware of any particular concerns with this property or the camels. I think everybody in Norco loves all the camels and interesting animals that are here. So I think our intent will be to work with the resident and to come up with some sort of a procedure with them if they have an amount of animals that would be over the count that would be permitted in the ordinance. So we'll follow up with them. If there needs to be cleanup language, we can certainly do that later, but we would recommend you adopt the ordinance and want to just reassure the resident that our intention would certainly be to work with them. This isn't in any way about limiting the number of animals that you have. That's not what the intention is here. It's just a cleanup. So, and anytime you're cleaning something up and it's new, sometimes you have unintended consequences. So we'll work through that with them. So, and my apologies, Melvin couldn't be here today, but Michelle Anglin is here from Community Services. She may be able to address if you have other questions. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. Kind of out of the ordinary, but Berwin, any comments?
I got a question for the speaker there. Did I understand you to say that the camels aren't weaned until they're 18 months old?
My understanding is that it's at least a year. It could be up to 18 months.
Okay. Because I didn't understand what you said there.
Oh, I apologize.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor.
Catherine?
Yes. So could you clarify our discussion in terms of it being a second reading versus a first reading?
I can. So the public hearing is closed. If this was a adjudicative due process hearing, like the Newcastle Development Agreement, where you have an applicant who has a right to be heard on and a right to be present for every comment, then we would have some significant due process issues in taking additional comments. The Brown Act doesn't even think about that. It didn't consider that. The law says that you must take public comment on every item on the agenda. This is on the agenda. The Brown Act makes no distinction between due process hearings and not. That's an issue for all cities. All cities have to grapple with that. For this item, it's legislative. It applies citywide. So we don't have the same kind of due process major concerns as if we were dealing with the Newcastle TA. So because of that, while we have to comment on the fact that a public hearing had already closed, there isn't a huge concern about council taking additional comments, contemplating this ordinance, making any changes council wants to make tonight. I think you should conduct your deliberations without worrying too much about the process portion of it, and just kind of do what you think is the right thing to do with the ordinance tonight, without concerns for the due process issue or anything else.
Okay. So I have several questions then. There were a couple comments made by our speaker. Thank you that camels were not currently counted or were allowed without restriction. Can you clarify with our code? So for instance, in the state of California, bison are allowed. If they're not specifically mentioned in our code, does that mean someone could have an unlimited number of bison? Can you address how the code kind of counts? Because we talk about animal units in our code, but we are specific in the animals that were listed. This is adding some new animals. Is it fair to assume that an unlimited number of animals could be kept if it is not specifically mentioned, or could you interpret the code for us legally speaking?
Legally speaking, I can, although I have to preface it with everything has to be given a reasonable interpretation. But the legally correct opinion is we have a permissible zoning code, which means that if it's not specifically allowed, it's prohibited. Nobody's saying all these animals were prohibited, but a strict code interpretation would be by enacting this code, we're giving more rights because we're taking something that was never specifically allowed and all of a sudden saying you can have X amount of these animals. This is Norco. Nobody's out saying you couldn't have these animals before. That's just a legally correct interpretation. It's because they were never listed. We never had a specific allowance for them. But we're adding that here today. So I don't think that the opposite, if we don't specifically regulate it, you can have an unlimited amount. That is not legally, that is not the correct conclusion.
Okay. So because I would assume, and my assumption as a layperson reading it would be, well, if a horse is this animal unit, then a comparable animal would be similar in terms of what is allowed on a property. Just because it's not mentioned doesn't mean I can have 100 on a quarter acre.
Exactly the kind of reasonable interpretation they have to give.
Okay. And then just to refer to some of the comments that were sent in, talking about animal control, that it says that their duty is to protect the health and welfare of the community, but that they might not have expertise with camels. But again, I would say if there is an issue with any animal control might be the one that needs to respond, and they would have to assess how they would respond to that animal using the resources that are around, whether that's them or the county or what have you. And then when I was looking at, our age limits for the animals that are listed, if you look at the weaning timelines, not all of them match. I interpreted that more as size. Once an animal gets to a certain size, then it counts as a whole animal unit. So that's something that certainly we could look at. If it's based on when an animal is weaned, then that can be adjusted based on the animal. But if it's based on how big an animal is, so that's certainly something I'd want to hear from my colleagues or from where that number came from.
Certainly, thank you. Was speaking with Superintendent Sparks III. He did some research, and I believe he said that he looked up from UC Davis, and that he's found some information that weaning of the camel could be done at 8 months. So
Okay.
that's where that number came from.
Okay, thank you. And I know a lot of our numbers come from UC Davis because they have a lot of expertise in this area. My alma mater too, go X. And then it talked about permitted. So we do allow for folks to apply for a conditional use permit if they want to go over the number. But just to look, most of our standard lot sizes in Norco are around half an acre, give or take, if it's an actual half acre or a little less, which allows 4 to 5 animal units, which is 4 to 5 camels per, for a half acre, which is akin to, our horses or what have you. Seems like a reasonable number of animals to have on property. So it's not changing that anyone can have a camel. It's just saying you're limited to the same amount of horses, for example, or the same amount of cows that everyone else in Norco is limited to, for the health and the safety of the animals to make sure they have enough space and all that. So I don't have any other questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Robin?
I think the work done on this ordinance was to provide clarity to our residents, especially with some of the new animals that are listed in particular. I know I had several residents reach out about the miniature cows and are looking forward to having clarity in that particular issue of the code. So I believe having the numbers there and having it clear is going to be a benefit to everybody. And I agree with what our city manager stated. There are ways to work with people and make things work. We have processes in place to do that. So I'm hoping that the resident and the attorney, after hearing the discussion this evening, can hear that it's not about, going and making somebody get rid of all their animals tomorrow. There's a comment in here about 30 days. That, as far as when the ordinance takes effect, 30 days is standard across the board. That wasn't anything that was arbitrary or different. It's 30 days for every single ordinance, no matter what. And so, I think that the work has been done. The work is good, and we can make some adjustments where we need to through the CUP process or different mechanisms that are already in place as necessary.
Thank you, Robin. Mayor Bash?
Yeah, I agree with Robin. This council in particular is a very animal friendly council. And I think that we'll work with the city manager. I personally love camels. I can remember when Gene Holder back in the 60s had about 30 of them over off 2nd Street. They were a lot of fun to watch. So I think we'll be okay. I think it gives clarity. And so I agree with Robin. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, so we have a recommendation to adopt ordinance 1109. Or our other choice is to kick it back to a first reading. Is that correct?
No, you can not adopt it. You can make a substantive change. We'll have another second read.
Okay.
It doesn't need to go back to a first read.
All right. or just accept this as it is.
I'm going to move to approve ordinance 1109.
We have a motion and a second.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor
thank
Pro
you for your
Tem, if I
time.
may. If I'd like to ask Michelle if she could step outside maybe and chat with the residents and their attorneys, so we can kind of get some information, start out that conversation. I'm sure we can get over the hump with this.
No pun intended.
I couldn't resist. I apologize.
There you go. Okay. Okay, we'll move into item 5C. This is Newcastle Skye Parkridge. This is also a second reading and approval of ordinance number 1110. And recommendation is to approve that ordinance. Just a
So
motion.
moved.
Unless,
Please vote. Motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
okay. Right along, city council staff communications. And I'll call upon any of the city staff. Hearing none yet. City attorney? City manager? Thank you. City council, we'll start with Berwin. Okay. Catherine?
Just want to thank the city staff for their work on that ordinance. As Robin mentioned, I also heard from residents who were really happy to find out that they can have more mini cows now that mini cows are kind of a 2-for-1 special. So just really glad that we addressed that and all of the ordinance work that's been done to make our community more ag friendly. Appreciate everyone who's worked on that, including the council members as well.
Thank you, Catherine. Robin? Mayor Bash?
Yeah, I kind of would like to ask the committee about the naming of names during the year. What prompted this was the whole LEAP thing, but the National Disability Independence Day is actually the celebration of the American with Disabilities Act from 1990. And since Norco actually has a very long history, we were the second paralyzed veterans chapter in the nation. Wheelchair basketball, in essence, was born here. It was the official rehabilitation physical medicine hospital. And I'm kind of just wondering if maybe you guys could look at that, see if it's something you might want to add to our mix. Yeah. National Disability Independence Day is July 26th. It essentially celebrates the American with Disabilities Act from 1990. Norco, as you all know, I mean, we were a birthplace of wheelchair basketball, second paralyzed veterans chapter in the nation. We have a long history of doing a lot of, I mean, the Ted Hoffman and his wife Jean, their Challenge Children's Rodeo. I mean, we've been doing that for years. And I just ask you guys maybe to consider it. I don't know if it's something you want to do. I just think that anything we can do to highlight that. And I thought it was more general than the one we looked at today. We have 4 equestrian therapy units here in Norco, with more coming, I think. So I just kind of wonder if you guys would just have a look at it. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Kevin. Lori, do we need any direction, or we can just, that's fine with the subcommittee, move forward?
Mayor Pro Tem,
Berwin.
I did have something there. Y'all been hearing for several months about about the pigs taking over our town. And there's nothing any more aggravating than having your property in tip-top shape and having something come in and destroy it. And I myself, and I'll probably get scalped for this, I don't think they should be a protected species when they come on your property and tear it up. I've seen people's pictures this week, seen what they done over at Clark Field, but this has been going on for a while over here in the Bluffs. Several people I know, they're getting their yards tore up with these things. And where my family lives down there, there's a bigger problem with them down in that way, and it's open season on them. You don't have to have a permit. Or you can trap them and take them to a person over there that buys them, and I think he takes them to a slaughterhouse and they process the meat and sell it overseas or take it to Veterans Hospital. But I think we need to do something here in town. I'd like to make a motion that we agendize this and we have a good long discussion on it and try to help our residents out, because I know I'm not going to put up with them. They come on my place and everything, but that's a shame that they tear up somebody's yard. And then looking at Clark Field the other day where the kids play, and then we was reading that letter today about that lady that's handicapped, has a trouble to get to some parks to see her children play, and then you got something like this to deal with. That's no good. So I'll make a motion that we agendize that at a future meeting.
And just to add to what you said, Councilmember Grant, can we look at what Corona's done, because they are starting to work to control the populations because they're having similar issues, and so they've taken action. So we can maybe learn from what other cities have tried to do. And there's some livestock guardian dogs at the animal shelter. Anyone wants to get those to try to chase the pigs away?
There's some what?
Livestock guardian dogs.
Oh.
The animal shelter. Might chase the pigs.
Some breeds of dogs don't get along good with pigs, though. They don't last long in the fight.
Okay. And still under discussion. This was also brought up at our rural meeting, the last meeting we had by some of the residents. And it's not only property damage that, especially with younger kids, wild pigs are extremely dangerous. And so I take that also as a personal threat to someone's person. So we have a motion and a second.
Please vote. And motion passes unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we could get plenty of volunteers for this. I have a couple of items that I'd like to address. Laura, you tell me how you'd like to handle this first one. This is a phone call that I received a few days ago, and it has to do with we have an exemption for what we classify as portable corrals, like 12 by 24. Horse shelters are allowed without permits. And because then they're considered portable. And this came up with a person that wanted to make a few modifications, basically, adding a side wall or two to this, and went into City Hall on it. So I did some research on this, and these are resolutions 97-9, 98-11, which address the temporary shelters. There's a lot of verbiage in there. I think after 25 years, I'd like to propose making a couple of changes to that. So whether we do it as just a meeting, a subcommittee meeting, or planning, however you want to set it up. I don't know if we need to do it first, open council or not.
Yeah, I mean, if it might be something that's good to work out with the subcommittee, that'd be great that, and the team can get with, brainstorm some ideas and then bring them to the council for a discussion.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, if council doesn't mind, I'd like to do this with Berwin,
Sure, up to you guys. That sounds great.
only because it goes back to early Horsemen's Association days.
Great, and then we can spend more time kind of noodling on it with the team and bring it back to the
Sure.
council. Very good.
Kevin, you okay with that? Okay.
I'm good.
All right, thank you. And then the last item I have, this is directed to Chad, and it's directed to Alma. That this certainly has been going on last year, okay? And again here recently, I've received text messages, emails, and phone calls that have been extremely complimentary of your front counter staff, both in public works and building safety. So I would ask that both of you share that with your staff. You know, sometimes they get beat up, but I've just been hearing so much positive that I think we need to reinforce that. So if you would both be kind enough to share that, I would appreciate it. And that's all I have. Anything else? 7:42, Robin. We're adjourned.